All right, welcome to Mobility Mondays, episode 5. Now we're going to talk about something that's probably common for a lot of people. We don't talk about it because it's like, oh, my wrist hurts. What's, oh, my wrist hurts? Oh, you got a limp wrist? No, it needs to be mobilized and strengthened just like every other joint in your body. Because, I mean, as we're going to talk about today, everything from push-ups to a front rack position when we're squatting. I mean,
even the front rack position and overhead press.
That's right. You want to move pain-free, and sometimes the pain distracts you. I mean, sometimes if I got an ache, I can't concentrate on everything else that I'm doing in the movement, and I'm distracted. Having your body positioned a pain-free way and moving that way is very important to keep your focus, and it's also important most because you don't want to be injured. No strain, right? So what we're talking about here is pretty much what your, let's talk about the wrist, what it does. I mean, so in this position here, you have your wrist just hanging out, okay? When we bring our hand back into this position here, we're extending our wrist here, extending at the wrist joint. We have extensor muscles on the back that are responsible for this. So you come back over here. Then when we come down, it's called flexion. The muscles here on the front are responsible for flexion. We also have some movements here from the side. We move this way and we move this way, ulnar and radial movement. So those are the, and also they can move this way, right? So we're going to talk about how to mobilize your wrist into flexion and extension, and also some warm-ups for your wrist rotation that are going to help you get your wrist warm and ready for training.
Right. So what I like to do before I start any kind of workout altogether is mobilize the wrist, right? It's quick, it's easy, it doesn't take minimal equipment, right? So first thing I do, I learned this from a fighter, Wanderlei Silva. He goes like this, and he rotates like this. And if you first do it, at first it was like kind of hurt sometimes because you never did it before, right? But when you go like that, it gets everything in your wrist kind of mobilized, right? So I'll do that probably for like a minute, and then let's move on to the next one. So the next one I do is I just grab my hand like this and kind of extend my wrist. So that. Like I said, it's like any other mobility. You have to hold it for 30 to a minute, right?
Yeah, and also it all depends on the condition of your tissue, right? I mean, if you have a lot of chronic tightness, if you've been immobile for a long time, for the more lasting and chronic changes, you're going to want to hold it for a lot longer. You may have to take breaks in between. Just go easy, start slow, especially with your wrist, because if your wrists are already predisposed to something that's or sensitive tension.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, you feel it, right?
Yeah. That's why, like I said, I'm gonna bring it up again. Oh, see what it always says. Always go until only go until it's pain free. Like if you start, like I said, pain is always our friend. So when you start feeling pain, something's wrong, and it tells you that. Your body will tell you something's wrong. So like I said, when I do that and I feel pain right here, that's where I'll stop. Or maybe I'll get better in time, or I keep doing the whole mobility, right? So, but I won't force it. Don't ever force the movement, right? So anything forced is always, it's not a good thing if you have to force it.
What we see a lot of times with our clients, either when we do personal training or participants that take classes, a very limiting factor for a lot of people is getting pressure or body weight into an extended position. So when they're down on the ground in a plank position or push-up position, if you know that causes discomfort through your wrist, that's going to potentially limit a lot of the things that you do when you try to work out. Because a lot of movements we do are holding our body weight up in that position, and that can deter a lot of people from continuing their training or going to a fitness class because it bothers the wrist. And
or even trying something new, right?
Right, yeah. So ideally, we would not just say, well, this is a limitation that I live with and it's going to be there for the rest of my life, so I need to avoid all these exercises and all these movement patterns because of my wrist pain. Some of the things that we're going to talk about will introduce that movement pattern and those loads in through that tissue little by little, so we accommodate and
for wide array of range, right?
That's right, yeah. This should be a functional range of motion that your wrist can go through pain-free. If it's not at this point, well, there's certain things that we can work on, and hopefully over time we will get the ability to go into those ranges that are pain-free, and then you can start doing those push-ups and doing your planks and other hand or loaded based exercises on the wrist without pain. That would be the long-term goal, so that you're not just signing off on never doing those exercises again for the rest of your life. Yeah.
So what DJ is going to show you is how to kind of roll out your forearms.
Yeah.
So DJ, if you want to,
for sure, man. So what we mentioned before in one of our other videos is kind of the order of like myofascial release and stretching. As Stuart mentioned in a video before that, actually something that I learned too from Stuart was that when you're going to be doing these two in combination, a good approach is to myofascial release first and then stretch. Because essentially the analogy is that if you have an elastic band and it's all wrapped up in knots and everything, and you try pulling it, it's not going to go very well. It's still going to you're going to make the knots tighter and tighter and tighter. And that's what happens if you stretch before you attempt to mobilize, right? So what we do is we attempt to break up the tissue, increase circulation, and then we go ahead and do the stretch after that, right? So anyway, that was actually Stuart's analogy with the elastic bands. Last time I showed that, I gave him a band. It was like this big. So yeah, no bands in this video. We're just going to use the words. So what we're going to do first, like we were saying, so on the front here we got flexors, on the back we have extensors, right? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to basically roll out the extensors first. So what we're going to do this, we can do it in a couple ways. The first way we're going to show you is keeping the wrist in a neutral position, which means it's not flexed or extended, okay? Be careful with the amount of pressure you use because you're applying the pressure in this instance here. You got it, so it's going to start right here. That's pretty much it. So I'm going to take my hand, I'm going to apply a little bit of pressure through here, and you're going to find out that there's going to be a bone sitting right over here. Hold on. You want to avoid that. So I'm going to take my thumb and rotate it toward the floor so I can get basically the bulk of my extensor muscles through here. And just slowly apply pressure and roll back and forth. And right here you can see that my arm is pretty much at a 45-degree angle as I'm rolling. And as it gets closer toward the elbow, I can feel that there's a bit of tension there. It's becoming, not very uncomfortable, but I can feel the pressure because those muscles are tight. So that's just keeping your wrist in a neutral position. One thing that you can also do is when you have the pressure applied, you can move the wrist into flexion to further stretch out those extensor muscles. So we can apply pressure and then we can flex and extend. You won't be able to extend too much because you're on a kind of a flat surface. If you do it on an elevated surface like an aerobics box or a table, you'll be able to gently extend under those conditions, right? So we're going to come through here. I'm going to find a tight spot here. I find it and then I slowly bring my wrist up in a flexion and come back to neutral. And I can feel there's some warmness in my fingertips as I'm doing this. And I can already feel that my wrist is being able to go into a larger degree of flexion just as I was applying pressure. And even if I just touch the tissue, I can feel that it's much more supple and soft because it was pretty wiry before. So this is a quick fix, but doing it on a regular basis is something that you want to be doing. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to work on the flexors. So this one's a little bit harder because you got to get it kind of a little bit of an odd angle. But coming down like this, through here, and basically just coming in nice and slow, like that. And here, this one would actually be done better on an elevated surface. In fact, I'm going to get an elevated surface, just 1 second. I'm using my class, you guys are dancing. So here, as you can see with the elevated surface, it would even work better on a table. But coming through like this, and just basically let the wrist stay and go back and forth. And as I'm getting, so I can expose more of the musculature. And there we go. So like we said, we're going to roll before we stretch. Okay, so then the next thing we're going to do is going to go ahead, we rolled out the extensors first. So now we're going to go ahead and apply a stretch for the extensors. Now you have to be careful with this one because you're going to put your wrist in a position where it's not used to being in. And anytime you go into a position, I mean, a good rule of thumb is you have to safely get out of the position and safely enter the position. That's kind of a good rule of thumb for mobility work. So don't try to contort yourself or do something you can't get out of safely. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start with having your wrists on the ground like this. So I'm going to have my wrists in a flexed position like this. Now, I'm going to keep my hands very close to my body because if I go very far out, I'm going to have more pressure on them. And if you're just new to this, you got to be careful because you can definitely cause some harm. So just gently place your wrists on the floor in front of you. And before you do anything else, my hips are back here. My center of gravity, all my weight is very far behind me, right? So there's not much pressure going on right now, and that's exactly what you want. Just let the back of your hands stay on the floor like this. My elbows are out. And just hold it in that position. And that might be enough for you to do because if you've not done this before, that'll be more than enough. And kind of hold there and see how you feel. And like both Jericho and Sir were saying, pain frees the way. So if you feel pain, maybe you can come up a little bit, right? Because I just let my whole body weight rest on there right now. You may want to start in this position.
I just want to add this because DJ has already a pretty good wrist flexibility. So for him, it's easy to enter this position, right?
Yeah.
But if you're finding discomfort, even like if it's raised up, that's okay. Don't feel discouraged. Don't feel. Everything's a process, right?
That's right.
So just kind of trust it. Work on it every single day.
Yeah.
So then you get better, right?
So yeah, and you guys want to jump into that stuff. I think I had too much coffee. I'm just talking. I haven't talked as much in any of these videos. Oh my God. Okay, so like I said, so my hips are way back here, and this is a good starting position. So as we get more advanced, you may want to move our weight forward, having more weight on our wrists like this.
Yeah, and also as you do this kind of mimics all the things that Stuart was saying, like all the exercises like push-ups, planks, anything like that.
And then when you get more advanced, you can slowly oscillate back and forth here, move back and forth, decreasing and increasing pressure as you do so. Okay, so that's just one wrist extensor stretch because you're moving into flexion, so we're stretching out the extensors. Okay. So what Jericho was saying about the different ways the wrist can move, we're going to go ahead and now stretch out the flexors. So when we're going to do this, whenever we're going to go for any kind of movement, you never want to lock out a joint. Although it's a stable position for the joint, it's also the most dangerous because there's a lot of tension on it and it's not going to be able to absorb a lot of the other peripheral movements that can happen to it, right? So in this particular movement, I'm going to start with my elbows bent. As you can see, they're bent like this. My fingertips are going to be going in line with my legs. I'm going to bend my elbows. Now, when we were doing the calf mobility video, they were talking about keeping your heel to the ground during the ankle glide test. Okay, this is pretty much the same thing. You want to have this part of your hand touching the floor at all times. So as I lean back, my fingertips are in contact with the floor, my elbows are facing forward. As I lean back, as soon as I feel one of my wrists, like one of the pads of my hand start to come up, I'm going to stop. Because although this one here, I can go way back, this one here, it starts to raise up here. So I gotta play with this one a little bit more. So just be careful, and that'll be the indicator that you've reached the limits of your mobility if you feel your wrist, if you feel this part of your hand coming off the ground.
And I just want to add, like, there's a lot of imbalances, right? Not everything's going to be symmetrical. I think, I mean, the body is just like so like diverse, and every sort of muscle is not created the same. So you're going to have imbalances between like this hand and that hand, right? That's why DJ says that when you're coming back, just have a rule of thumb for both.
That's right.
Like if one comes off the ground, then just that's it. Call it a day.
So if you are, this would be the starter position here. If you want to get really, if you want to get more advanced, so have your hands close together, keeping your palms here, reducing the bend in your elbow but still maintaining it, and then coming back like this. Pushing my palms into the ground, coming back, and hold 30 to 45 seconds, maybe even a minute longer. The longer we're going to do it, the longer we're going to have the lasting effects because the tissue is going to maintain the position that it's in most frequently. So if it's always jammed up from lots of shortening, lots of contractions, or whatever it is you do in your daily life, it's going to maintain that position. So the longer we are able to hold that mobilized position, the more likely we're going to have an increased range of motion. Anything else to add, boys?
And you don't have to necessarily use the ground. If you can only do this, that's fine. That's fine. Nothing is like stopping you from just doing that if it's really, really chronic, right?
That's right.
And it's a good start, right? And as all we know, sometimes we just need to start something, and then that'll motivate you to go farther and farther and farther. Next thing you know, you're doing handstands.
For sure. All right.
Beautiful.
That's it. All right. So there we go. There are a couple of things we can talk about. We're going to try to keep it a bit shorter here. So thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to check out Jericho at Team Developmental on IG. Give him a follow, check out his videos, lots of great knowledge there. Yeah, thanks very much for tuning in. We see that there's a number of more views are coming up, so thanks for taking the time to watch our videos. Don't be afraid to click the like button and subscribe, because then you get notified when we publish the videos. And we'd love to hear your feedback. So thanks very much, and we'll see you soon.
And knowledge is power!